Welcome to the Sexual Wellness Podcast, real-life conversations with industry experts on modern sexuality and how to live a happy, healthy, turned-on life. I'm your host, Laura Allen, founder of New Zealand's leading sexual wellness store and holistic sex, love and life coach, passionately guiding women to expand their pleasure in and outside the bedroom. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Sexual Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Allen, and I'm just letting you know that my books have been opened for coaching clients, for one-on-one coaching clients this September. So if you want to completely revolutionize the way you feel about your body, your life, your sexuality, all while having a fun and pleasurable time, then I have absolutely got you covered. So check out my website, www.laura.allen.com/coaching to inquire. So today I'm interviewing Nina Powell, and Nina teaches women to discover their inner wolf woman and turn divorce, menopause, and difficult life transitions into a catalyst for their most wildly turned on, powerful, and passionate life. And in this episode, we are talking about pleasure, sex, love, and living your most turned on life at any age. So much wisdom coming out of this show. So I hope you enjoy, and don't forget to send me your key takeaways either in a DM or post them on my Instagram, and we would love to hear from you. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Nina. So amazing to connect with you again. I know that we have connected a few times before, and I'm really excited to have you on the show. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. This is a great way to start the day, talking about sex and pleasure and yeah.
Absolutely. It's probably one of my favorite ways to get the ball rolling. So before we dive in, I want to know, what color are you today and why?
I am green today, and that's a sense of vibrancy and aliveness and growth, feels like today.
Beautiful. I love that. So I wanted to get you on the show, for many, many reasons. But the topic that's been really strongly coming through for me to talk about with you is, I guess, the seasons of sexuality throughout life, because we go through so many transformations and phases, and I really wanted to know, as you've got a really wide scope within your practice, what some of these like major transformational phases are that we go through as women, and just kind of unpack their uniqueness so that all of the listeners can have a sense of understanding and perhaps some more compassion if they are in like going through one of those phases. So what are some of the common, like the most common, I guess, transformational periods that we go through throughout life that affect our sexuality?
Yeah, so what I've really noticed is that a lot of the time when women will come to me is when they're in this like transformation time. And there seems to be some real themes around that. Like one is definitely like as women start to get to their like 30s and around that time, maybe like already 30, but around this kind of time, it's like, it's, that would be one of the phases. Another one I really notice is when there's been a big change in relationship, like a divorce. end of a big relationship, you know, that's definitely like a time when women seem to start questioning and exploring like who they are. And menopause, I would say that's another major transition phase for women. And that, again, it like brings up like a total change in like body physiology. And in that, our sexual self is majorly affected. And I know that all of these phases are like quite hard when you're in them, but I can't help but get really, really excited when people come to me when they're in them, because I know like the other side, and I know that it's just like really, really juicy, and it's going to be like better than ever. But when you're in it, you there's so much like doubt and questioning about like, what can I do, and how is this ever going to work? And at different phases, particularly, you know, like in menopause, there's a real, sometimes women will say to me, should I even bother? Like, if I'm losing my sexual desire, maybe that just means that I shouldn't bother. And I'm like, no, because I know that actually women can have like the best sex of their lives, after like during and after menopause, like literally like the best sex ever, which you think when you're in your 30s, you start to have like the best sex ever. But then apparently we have this next like best sex ever phase. So a lot of women just choose not to do anything in that because it's so difficult. But if you do, there's this other side. There's this whole new awakening and, yeah, incredible like emerging that can happen. Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes me feel very excited because, yeah, I mean, there is a story. And as we age, I guess maybe it changes, but I know as like a younger woman, there's a common story that, you know, when you hit menopause, it's, you know, you're drying up and your sex life ends and, you know, old couples sleeping in separate beds and, you know, just having a really sexless life. And so I wonder like what it is about menopause, like what are the physiological factors that we need to consider, and then what are some of the ways that we can work with them to our advantage?
Okay, so I mean it's more than just like the act of sex. Like really what is happening at these phases is women are starting to question like, who am I a lot of the time? Where in my life am I no longer, where does my life not feel like it really matches who I am? And that is like the big question. And it's kind of like, who am I? I've lost myself along the way. So when we start to look at like the challenges around that time, we really wanted to be looking at like all of that and really like waking up the whole of the human, that like waking up that passion again. And I use the term like the wild woman archetype, which a lot of women have been like over domesticated over time. You know, we've started to live our life according to other people's rhythms. And over time, you know, that dries us up, you know, and that can happen at different phases, not just during menopause. But what we really come up against in the menopause is, change in our like hormones, and a lot of women will experience dryness. Like they'll start to notice the lubrication is changing and their body's not responding as quickly, or not really responding like they used to know that it would. And another big thing that a lot of women seem to notice is that the desire for sex just isn't there. And you can break this down into, we get used to having this like spontaneous desire where we like, where you like see somebody or see your partner, or you just feel like having sex. Like you just wake up and you're like, oh my God, I really feel like having sex today. And when during menopause, that feeling can go. And it's not just menopause either. You know, a lot of women will say that after they have a baby as well. So it's like these transition points, or women will find that they just are having that at other points in their life too, that the desire isn't there. So that's like the challenge, which becomes this amazing opportunity because we've become reliant on the body just like leading the way, you could say. Like, you feel like it, so you go that way, you know. Oh, you're feeling kind of like hot and you're, you know, feeling a bit of that desire, and you notice that you're dressing yourself that day that way, or, you know, it sort of flows into your life in all these ways. But actually the response of desire in your body, so you can think of it as these two kind of like ways the body might be with sexual desire. We can really get good at cultivating responsive desire in the body. So it doesn't mean that like sex isn't there. It could be amazing. It's about just learning ways to have that responsiveness in the body. So there's loads of different things that we can learn around that. And what I find when I'm working with women with the dryness, which is amazing. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to say that I'm going to like guarantee that every single woman walks through my door will have this experience, but the experience that I have had with a lot of women going through menopause is that the dryness can go entirely. Like the thing that a lot of women don't like about it is, you know, you have to have this like bottle of lube beside the bed, and you're kind of like getting lube, and it can feel like a real distraction from the enjoyment of the connection that they're having. And through working through what's really going on for them, so this like, who are you? Where have you lost yourself along the way? Where are you blocking yourself? What emotions have you like pushed down? And then doing body work, which is pretty radical, but is incredible. So this is internal massage, you could call it. And it's a very slow, mindful practice of internal body work for women, which will release the physical, emotional, energetic kind of holdings in the pelvis. And through those two elements, what I seem to find is that women's wetness comes back, which is like, you know, like hallelujah, you know, so exciting for these women, because it's totally life-changing to not have the body no longer responding.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mixture of understanding yourself and who you are now, and this kind of all-encompassing perspective on sexuality, because sexuality isn't always like genital based, you know, it's like who we are and how we live our lives. And so, yeah, I really like that it's incorporating the emotional and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and particularly in relationship, you know, like if women have held back a lot, like not because we've been taught as women that we're like overly emotional, you know, demanding, or, you know, whatever these things might be that we've been taught. And so we suppress often a lot. And once you start working more with like what you really wish to say, and that allows the connection, your body to actually open naturally. Whereas if you've got something blocked, then it's like you just can't bypass the vagina. It's like the vagina says no. Whereas maybe when you're younger, you could kind of get away with it. But it gets to this like truth point. Yeah.
You can no longer hide.
Yeah. It just doesn't work. You just don't get the pleasure. It's just.
Yeah. Wow. And there can be so much to unpack in that as well, especially if we're talking specifically with the sort of later stages of life, and you've been operating in this certain way, and you're, you know, perhaps in a marriage and you've had kids, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, hang on, who am I? This is not what I truly want. And this is not how I want to show up. This is not honest. This is not practicing radical honesty with myself or with my partner. And then having to not only realize that, you know, this is what you've been doing your whole life, but then learn all of the skills, these new skills to start to behave and actually like embody, I guess, this new way of being, which takes time, years, a long time.
Well, yes. And it can happen also very, very quickly.
Okay, cool.
Like
that.
You could say like, oh yeah, you know, to be somebody different takes like all these things. But actually within a couple of weeks, women's wetness is back because they've literally like said the thing that they wanted to say and done the body work. And it's like, oh, now I'm back. You know, now that flow can be back. And I'm not saying that the responsive desire, you know, that, but I mean, that can also happen very, very quickly too, but we get better at it over time, you know? So like within a few weeks, you're already like learned how to use your mind to support your body in responding rather than not being supportive and pulling you away. So you can start to have really, really good sex. And it's really about like getting over yourself that you have to wait for your desire to show up before you'll do the act, which is actually not just about menopause at all. That's just like a lot of women will, I'd say, probably, I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure you could also know that like a lot of women wait for their body rather than deciding that they're going to have pleasure.
I love that. Yeah, totally. And I feel like as well, especially in relationship, we can put all of the responsibility onto our partner to turn us on. It's like, okay, we're going to have sex and now we're going to go into the bedroom and he/she needs to turn me on. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, like I wish he was better at this, or I wish he like blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Or she,
absolutely.
Or whoever the partner is,
Yeah. See, I personally love to have my own time before I meet up with my partner or my lover, whether we're just going out for dinner or going out to a gig or whether we like are having like an intentional lovemaking evening together. It's like I really like to get into my body first and you know, whether that be like a dance or a beautiful meditation on my womb and just kind of like expanding my pleasure. And it's not necessarily a sexual practice. It's more just about really dropping in and getting present and starting to feel that juice so that I can show up in my erotic nature, I guess, in this receptive, desirable, like I have the desire for myself, I have the desire to even have sex, and so it just makes the opportunity so much more alive as opposed to that really lackluster experience.
Oh yeah, like when we go from like life to bedroom and there's no transition between that, nothing where we transition in some ways. It's no wonder in the bedroom the body is just like and you know feels like it's just not there yet. Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what are some of the practices? Sorry.
Oh no, so I definitely always say to people that having something like that for yourself, whatever it is, even if it's just like lying down on your bed for like 10-20 minutes, just being in your body, or listening to yoga nidra, or dancing, whatever it might be, having a bath, just something, because our mind is the biggest block to our pleasure, because the pleasure is in the body and is in our sensory experience of the body, like breathing, moving, hot, cold, feeling, sensing, which you could very much call the feminine nature of the body, that time and space that's outside of rational thinking and normal kind of linear time, because our rational mind does not give us enjoyment anywhere, whether we're having a conversation and we're just like off caught in something, dancing, having sex with yourself, with a partner, Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need these transitions.
Yeah. Beautiful. So what's like, how would you suggest that a client who's totally new to this kind of work does to start discovering these transition tools? Because I feel like it is unique for every woman, but where do we start?
Yeah, where would I suggest the first beginning? To be honest, I think the first beginning is to actually create space to be with your body.
Yeah.
So by that, I mean like no pressure, no performance, like idea, which, you know, all of those sorts of things are like this more masculine approach that we have to the body. Like, I'm going to have an orgasm in this position, or I'm going to have, you know, we get a lot of pressure on us as women from the media, from what we read, from what we hear from others. Like, I should be able to have a vaginal orgasm and a cervical orgasm and this and all of this stuff, which is just such a masculine approach to the body. And it's not where the real magic occurs. Real magic occurs through just actually having some time with your body. So I would suggest like carving out half an hour or an hour where you like lie on your bed and you just start to explore different sorts of touch on your body and just start to take a little bit of time just to slow down. And then what I love is to start to delve into who you are as an erotic being. So delving into this erotic mind and start to like wake up the fact that you are erotic. Like if you're in, if you're in a transition time where you're noticing that you don't really have sexual desire, then we get stuck in this idea of ourselves as a person, as someone who doesn't have sexual desire. So like, I don't really want sex, or it's not going to feel very good. That is very common. A lot of women have experienced pelvic pain. So we have this like idea of everything, and all of that creates a block between like who we could be and what we really like, and discovering who we are. So anything that starts this little bit of curiosity. So there's a wonderful book by Jack Moran. He talks about the erotic mind, and in there he speaks about looking at like your peak erotic experiences. So just allowing yourself to like remember what they are and writing them down, and looking at like the different elements of them, like what made it such a turn on for you, and even through this, just allowing yourself to remember the erotic times you've had in your life, I would guarantee that your body is going to start responding. It's like it just starts to open this doorway, and then we can start to think about, you know, we can start to discover like who you are, what you like, you know, how you are sexually is like such a rich tapestry. And as you say, it's not just about genitals. It's like, what kind of things make you feel that naughtiness, or what kind of ways does your body just like melt? You know, it might be just feeling so supported, or man, it might be when your partner washes the dishes. I mean, God, what a turn on. Apparently it turns on most women.
As soon as you said that, I was just like, even myself, I'm just like, just feeling supported, you know, and feeling understood. Like, people underestimate how erotic it is to be heard and understood. Like, damn, that turns me on. My whole body is reacting to that right now, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, we think about, I guess, particularly in relationship, or even, you know, this doesn't have to be in a long-term relationship. This can even be in a one-night stand, casual sex scenario, like creating space to just be seen in your expression and heard in that moment can really create the environment and the container for the sex that you really want to have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so important is to like know what it is that you want, because like you just noticed then that you started to like really respond in your body when the thought of being like seen and heard. And so knowing that is like you can then ask for that, or you can like encourage that, or you'll notice that will come into your life, and you can allow yourself to really like receive that. And we all are different, you know. For me, it might be something like just being held really, really tightly. And actually I even do that with myself. And I even wrap myself up in a blanket and like cocoon myself, because that gives my body the support that I desire, that makes me feel really, really good. So
I love that. I also like myself, just to perhaps share some inspiration, you know, going back to it being a bit more holistic and not so much like genital based. I love to just lie in the sun. Like I'm very much a lioness. I love just being in the sun and getting really present with the sensations in my body, like noticing every little sweat follicle starting to open and release, you know, this dewiness and the heat on my body, and just how I can really like deeply relax into that. You know, that is, for me personally, that is so erotic, you know, and so beautiful. And just making the space 5 minutes to lay in the sun and experience that is beautiful, you know, is beautiful. And it adds to my turn on, it adds to my sensuality, my sexuality as a human being, as a woman. And, you know, I really make sure that I prioritize little things like that in my day. And that's what it is. It's about prioritizing your pleasure and prioritizing your turn on and taking responsibility for it, right? Because like I said before, it's easy.
And deciding. I always say to them, it's like deciding, you know, like that I am going to be this person who enjoys pleasure, and deciding that it's important. And creating those little windows is such a great way to do it as well. Just having little, like, it doesn't have to be this big thing. And it is that the more like you practice just noticing the sensations in your body, then when you are having sex, you'll be able to be here now much more easily. You'll be able to be in that moment and not be so distracted, because you've cultivated the practice of awareness, of feeling sensations, and hang out in that, and enjoying that as pleasure, not feeling, you know, I think a lot of the time we think that we need to like always go for the high pleasures. Like women will have a quick 15-minute orgasm, and that's fine and great, you know, if that's what you want to do, that's go you. I think any kind of pleasure is great, but also just to enjoy like some of that lower levels of arousal and pleasure in the body as well, and to know that we don't always have to like race to this heightened place, which is always a practice with a partner, because there can be habits around like racing. And I joke, you know, because a lot of women can feel like they've got to get there before the partner gets there first. So it's, you know, having the opportunity to slow down and breathe and just notice all of the different places in that. Yeah.
And having other experiences than, you know, penetrative sex, like soft sex and, massage and kind of connection practices, rather than just going in for this like fast, frictional sexual experience that that is sort of what we're taught is what sex is, you know. And it's really easy, it's so easy to just slip into that. And I notice a lot that when you just stop, literally just stop and notice, get really present and notice all the sensations in your body that you've just moved around, because, you know, you've had this like high intensity energy, like going experience, and then stop. And just like, it's almost like watching the dust settle and like really doing a little body scan and feeling where you're feeling all the sensations in your body and noticing them. Because if you don't notice them, then you're not feeling it, you know?
Yeah. You're just like racing through instead of just like having these little pauses, and then it's like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's so good.
It is so important to practice. Well, there's two words here. There's like practice, and that's the first thing, because it's like we can't expect to go to the gym and do a squat and have a big booty straight away. Like you gotta continuously show up, keep working out, and then like even after 6 months, you've got this like, you know, you've been doing all the squats and your booty is tight, but you know, you can't just stop going to the gym and expect it to stay in that shape forever. Like, you know, you've got to continuously show up for it. So that's the practice piece. And then
like
there's
with the booty.
I do love a good like squat workout. So, and then I guess the next piece is presence. And, you know, in my last relationship, we had all sorts of different types of sex, but, you know, we also had like amazing, predictable, same normal couple sex, you know. It was just like, this is what we're going to do, you know, just the same. And I loved it. It was probably my favorite, because it was, even though it was the same, it was never the same, because I practiced being present, and there is no moment in the world that is ever the same if you're truly, truly present. So just, you know, a lot of women come to me going, you know, give me your top 5 sex tips, thinking that I'm going to like tell them all of these like practical tools on how to give a great blowjob. But it's like, no, like learn to meditate, you know, like that's probably my biggest tip that I give any of my clients is like meditation. Having some kind of practice around presence and awareness is going to be like your best friend in the bedroom, because when you can get out of your head, which is where all of that distraction comes up. Is he enjoying it? Like what's good, you know, like you know, and this is my to-do list. I need to hang out the laundry, all of that stuff. If you can learn.
I wish he would go softer, a little bit to the left. I can't say anything.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and then just like learn to be way more present. So.
Yeah, no, I would say that, but and not like any type of meditation either, like specifically doing like a somatic or, you know, body-based meditation practice. Like, I think something like transcendental meditation probably wouldn't really help you, where you're like got a, you know, a mantra and you're like in your head doing this mantra. And you want to be doing something where you're like practicing noticing sensations and feelings through your body, and noticing the kind of, you could call it the energy waves moving, and then that can get more advanced, where, you know, the meditation I use is a tantric lineage, Vajrayana lineage of Tibetan Buddhist meditation. And in that we do a lot of work with the central channel, the energy channel up just in front of your spine. And during self-pleasure and also during sex, you know, you can move that energy up and down that channel as well. And that can create these experiences which are like otherworldly, cosmic, like incredible experiences, which I think that's what we all are really longing for. Like we think we're like wanting the vaginal orgasm or the cervical orgasm or something, you know, because we've been told that these are the things that are like going to make the sex amazing. But I think what we're longing for is these connections that are, connections with self and with a partner and with the divine and the cosmos, you know, it's something that is like, whoa.
Well, yeah, because it's something about it. It's like, it's like drinking honey, like deliciously, you know, poured from the gods, like into your mouth, and it just like drips down your throat and over your body. It's like such a incredible experience, and the information that you can get from it as well, and just this, it's it's more than sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more than an orgasm.
This is when it gets spiritual and it gets like so like life changing. Like it ripples out into your life. It changes who you be. It changes how you experience the next day and the next week.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm intrigued about this meditation that you were talking about. Is that like a practice that you went to a retreat to get, or is it something that you bought online, or is it something that you practice and teach, or could you share a little bit more about it?
I teach a lot of practices that move energy around in the body because I guess they're the things that take us to these places that I'm just super curious about and always have been, I think. So, but the learning of the specific one that I was talking about then, it's not a sexual meditation. That is like my meditation practice that you could learn online. There is a course that you can do online. You can check out Dharma Ocean. The teacher is Reggie Ray, and that practice is a practice of pure awareness, which is not their beginning practice. That would be the first couple of years you might spend doing the ground level practices, which are more like body scanning practices, connecting, dropping down into the earth, belly breathing. There's various other things that you might do first before you start to do that particular practice, but you can learn versions of that I might teach to people when we're working together to use in that specific way for pleasure.
Yeah.
But I learned it on retreats. I've spent like a whole month sitting in that practice on a retreat.
Delicious. I will, I'll get more details on that. And of course, your practice as well. We can share later in the podcast, but I'll just link to all of this in the show notes just so that the listeners know that they'll know how to find it and find you, of course. Oh my gosh, so much. Yeah, well, where to go to next? I think the other thing that I wanted to ask, which is a total circle back to the beginning of the podcast, is what is it about the 30s? I mean, a lot of my listeners are in their mid-20s, late 30s. That's the kind of main target audience that we've got here. So what is it about this transitional period that is so significant, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, how old are you? I can't remember. Are you...
I'm 29.
29, so
turning 30 soon.
You're in that now. So
I'm in it, girl. I'm in it.
Yeah. So, and just in the last few years, you've been like starting to really explore deeply who you are as a sexual being. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sort of started now, I guess, about 3.5, nearly 4 years ago. Yeah. And since moving back to New Zealand, it's been a really, just to sort of give a bit of background onto me, is that I started this journey when I was in Europe, and I found that there was so much more available to me when it came to learning about sexuality and tantra and these more meditative styles of tantra practice that you're referring to. And then moving back to New Zealand, I've found it very, very difficult to find teachers and, groups that I can learn from and be involved with. So it's been an interesting journey, and now sort of popping out the other end of being involved in a really wide spectrum of practice and going, okay, I've like been involved in this huge melting pot of, quote unquote conscious sexuality, and like, I feel ready to step out in a way and just move forward in my life with everything that I've learned and integrate. I don't need to be like deep in it anymore. I'm ready to just integrate, and like, what does healthy sexuality mean to me now? That was such a little tangent, but I felt the need to express that. I don't
think it was at all, because it's like what, the process of wanting to going in, doing like the healing a lot of the time. I mean, that was my experience for me when I was in my like around my 30s, I was also going through a relationship breakup, so a marriage. So for me, it was this like huge kind of melting pot of transition and time in that way. And it became such a right time of healing, because I think for me, and for probably a lot of other women too, through my like teens and 20s, I was really curious sexually. Like I was always like curious. I was like, oh, what is this? And I followed loads of threads and ended up in some amazing open spaces where I got to really explore. But I also had a lot of sex that wasn't really like me choosing. It was really like following the rhythm of somebody else, of the partner, you know, and having sex that I probably would have said no to, but it felt too awkward. Yeah. Which sounds so awful, you know, when we think of these like things, but that's the reality. Is like, oh, it's easier to go along with it than say, stop now. We're already here. It'll, you know, may as well, you know, which is such a like not exciting ground, because now when I teach people, we always work around like discovering what your hell yeses are and only going with your hell yeses, and all of the other stuff is like your maybe and your no, but which always makes the sex way better when it's a hell yes for everyone, because I think we feel it energetically between people. I'm sure that they get that kind of maybe ickiness from us, even if they weren't consciously particularly aware of it at the time. So yeah, I think there's like a lot of like not really knowing. And then for me, and I think for a lot of people, you start to sort of realize that there could be something deeper, not just like these sort of physical sexual interactions. There's something more that could be there. And maybe somebody is like lucky enough to have had an experience spontaneously that was just like, wow. And that might sow the seed of like, oh, I wonder how I could have more of that. Oh, I wonder what else is there. Maybe there's something there. And for me, I ended up, when I was going through the divorce, I Googled meditation and community and ended up at this place. I was living in the UK for a long time. I ended up at this community in Dorset that had this conscious clubbing weekend on, and which was quite a novel idea to me, like clubbing without all the added extras that I used to do.
Yeah.
And we did lots of workshops, tantra workshops and satsang and all these really beautiful workshops that created this opening in my body that was something I hadn't experienced before. It was this like kind of bliss opening, and that just made me really curious. So I started following the threads and started going to workshops anywhere that I could, you know, heard of, women's sexuality workshops, and was lucky enough to be living in Bristol in the UK, so I could travel up to London and various places. And there was some wonderful teachers in Bristol that were holding some workshops where we did a lot of tantric rituals together. And in that we did some partner rituals and really learnt that there could be different ways of experiencing sexuality with a partner. That was definitely not always penetration, but beautiful breast massage practices and things where there was no performance or no outcome. It was just to have those moments of like, you're doing this for 10 minutes, just that. And it was so liberating for me. And yeah, my body just loved it. My body just really loved it. So I think there's this, I know that was a tangent too.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm inspired. I've written down like a million questions. Keep going.
Yeah. So I think around that time of our 30s as a woman, we are waking up to the fact that we are like entering the most amazing sex of our life. Like that is the feeling. I think that a lot of women have probably heard when you're in your 30s, you're going to have like the best sex ever, which is true. I think of that time, there's that potential there. You're getting more confident, and it's this transition. It's this like, you know, you're moving from your 20s to your 30s. Something starts happening at transition points where we start to question, who am I? Who am I? What am I doing? Is this the life that I want to be living?
Yeah.
If it's not this, how does it want to be? And
just stepping into the driver's seat, hey, and just sort of going, is this what I want really?
Yeah.
And what do I want to create? And then going, and then make that decision that you were saying before, and then just deciding and doing.
Yeah. And exploring, exploring. It's like you have to start like following the threads of the things that you're drawn towards, and just like trusting that if you're drawn there, there's something for you there. So it was really hard to kind of like crack my like workshop cherry, I suppose you could call it. I was used to buying things that were physical, like clothing, alcohol, I don't know, festival tickets or something.
Yeah.
But I wasn't used to like paying for workshops or massages or things like that. So it was, I remember that first kind of like investing in myself like that was like a thing. But then once you do it once, you're like, you realize this huge benefit, and it became like all of my money now like goes down that funnel.
Absolutely. Like all of my finances go on great food and like self-care. I don't want to say personal development, because it's like it is and it isn't. It's more just like investing in myself and in my life,
Personal development sounds always a bit like there's something wrong with me now that I have to fix.
Totally.
Rather than like, I just want more.
Yes, right. I love that. I'm so going to use that and amen to that, because it's like all the healing in the world happens when you realize that actually you're totally sweet. It's so easy to get addicted to like get addicted to constantly needing to like fix and change and grow and heal, and because there's something wrong, when actually, no, you're sweet.
Rather than you like wanting more, like I want to be able to have more in these moments. Yeah,
which is totally okay. It's just like the most exquisite life experience is our birthright, and we can absolutely have it all. So why the hell not?
Just like now we're talking, I'm just thinking, God, I just can't imagine if I hadn't followed those threads, like what life would have been like. Like the sexual thread of like awakening is like the best ever.
Yeah,
like I used to not even be able to. For me to have an orgasm was like such an effort. And like not even always there. And I remember like trying to self-pleasure and just like being like, oh, it's just kind of like, what's the point? Yeah. It wasn't natural to me. I think people forget that sometimes when they meet me. They're like, oh, you must have always like been this way or something. I used to dance really stiff, like I couldn't really move in my body, like my hips. I was really like robotic. Partly, I think, as a protective mechanism against unwanted attention that I didn't really know what to do with. And I remember at one of the first tantra workshops, and like all this anger came into my body, and we were doing this. And then after lunch, we had this dancing, and I said to the teacher I was feeling all this anger, and he's like, let it out. And he looked at me with these like fiery sort of inviting eyes, like love and fire. And I kind of like let this anger out, and then my body just like opened up, and I was just moving and dancing. And I remembered seeing my younger sister who at a festival, and she just seemed so open in her body, in her dance. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like her, like free. And,
yes.
And then my like hips started to like move from then on in. It was like,
that is so incredible. I'm really, really glad that you shared that, because, I have so many women come to me saying like, I can't, this is who I am. And they think that, they look at me when I dance and they go, oh, I wish I could dance like that. And I'm like, if you can see it in me, you have it in you, and you can dance like that. And I'm so, it almost brings a tear to my eyes, because I really deeply resonate and have, I've been in those experiences, not only with myself, but I've seen it in so many women. When we just let go, like the profound, like life-changing transformation can take place, and we just need to let go, like, and allow ourselves to do that, like give ourselves permission. And when it comes to learning about what lights us up and what turns us on, and following our curiosity and everything, I have a essential essential living workbook, and in there is a self-love menu. You know, it seems really, really basic, a basic thing to do, but you know, you can do it every month because things change all the time. And it's simply a practice of checking in with yourself and following your curiosity and exploring and experimenting with things that light you up and bring you a sense of joy, a sense of pleasure, a sense of happiness, and actively making space and time to do them every single day, you know? And so it's like when it comes to living a turned on life, it's simply about showing up and doing the things that turn you on, and that can be in and outside of the bedroom. And I think as well, I just wanted to mention something in here that is a little bit more kind of erotic based. I know for myself, when I was trying to figure out what turned me on and all that kind of stuff, I really enjoyed reading like erotic novels. Like I really went through a phase of Mills and Boon, which is kind of like really trashy, like dramatized romantic 80s soft porn novels. They're hilarious. They're like 50 cents at the op shop. So if anyone wants to get involved, I highly recommend for some like light beach reading. But also things like Nancy Friday, Women on Top, which is an entire book of, you know, various women's fantasies, and just kind of like talking and like, you know, asking the question and really getting curious and putting yourself out there and trying to discover what it is that turns you on and that you want to do.
Yeah, and reading erotic literature is a great way to spark arousal in your body. I mean, you don't want it to be like the thing that you would get kind of addicted to, like you always need your erotic novel to get turned on. But when you have been finding that your like arousal or your desire has kind of disappeared off somewhere and you don't know where she's gone, getting and reading erotic literature is a great thing to do. It's fabulous. But I would say that for everyone, like to try and spark your arousal like every day in some way, because you can think of us like a pot of water. Women are water and men are fire. And so as a pot of water, if we're like cold, it's going to take a lot of heat and warmth to like get you to simmer and then to get you hot. Whereas if you're already warm, so if you already have a regular self-pleasure practice and you are reading erotic literature and you let yourself get a little spark of arousal when you saw that hot person over the road or something, or whatever that might be. You know, in other cultures, there's a lot more flirting. Like in France, you know, there's like flirting all the time. Like it's not we're like so stiff and shut down sexually as a culture.
So
like we
stiff.
don't even like allow that playfulness in our daily like culture.
Yeah, I hear that. And in like South America, like they are so like base chakra. Yeah, like they really operate in their whole life from that part of their body. And it's fascinating, I believe, to just observe how people relate and live from that place. Interesting.
I was watching a TED talk about she was talking about Cuba the other day, and it was on seduction, but I think what she was sort of meaning was just like the sexual energy, that playful energy. Not we have this thing about seduction, like it's a thing we're taking. She was meaning more like flirting, and how like it's really a thing that they're always doing, and you know, moving their hips and dancing, and all the little kids even are told how beautiful they are as they're like doing this sort of sensual dancing and how gorgeous they are. Whereas we're told, don't get attention, you'll get the wrong sort of attention. And so we start to like disconnect and dissociate from our sexuality and our sensuality, and physically from those places in the body. So yeah, we can learn a lot from other cultures in that way, like learn how it's okay and how it can be, is that there's nothing to be ashamed of there. And, you know, that to have that playfulness in your life, you know, you don't have to worry that you're being bad or wrong or inappropriate to feel that kind of aliveness.
Yeah. Or like dishonest in your relationship. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a sensual woman who likes to flirt with life, you know? There's something about like being contained and uncontained, I guess, around that. Some people, you know, they're like kind of so sort of flirty that there's like a bit of like a takey kind of energy about them, and you feels a bit
like they're too much in your space. So I suppose there's something around that kind of like how to dance with that, how to be a little bit flirty and for it to feel okay, like not to feel like you're kind of going out to grab that. You're just like having a little joke. You're kind of like back here in your body having a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just takes practice. It's a practice.
It is a practice. I did want to go back just a little bit to something you said before, if that's okay. You said something about letting
Absolutely. Go. Yeah, please.
And I think there's probably letting go, to tell a woman to let go is probably similar to saying, like, why don't you just calm down? Like, it's kind of that kind of feeling. Like,
not helpful at all.
Kind of, isn't it? You know, you're like, yeah. So
cool.
we have an idea that letting go is like a thing that just kind of happens. Like, if I could just let go. But actually letting go or surrender is really about moving towards what you desire more. So even in that moment of me saying, oh, I just like I have this real freedom that happened in my body, and I kind of like, I did let go, but I didn't really just let go. What I did is I moved towards the anger. I let the anger come through me. So you have to kind of be moving towards something in order to let go. So it might be in dance, you might be moving towards the rhythm under your feet or something, or, you know, moving towards your breath. Like, in order to find that, like, sense of something in you, there's got to be something that you're moving towards. And in sex, you're moving towards noticing pleasure in order to surrender to the pleasure and maybe have an orgasm arrive. You know, you're noticing how good it feels. You're noticing that you feel wet, or you're telling yourself that you feel wet. You're kind of cultivating that, moving towards. I think anyway, that's my opinion about letting go.
Yeah, I like that. It feels more accessible, and a better explanation of what quote unquote letting go actually entails. Yeah, because
there's nothing worse than being told, like, just let go or something. You're like, just let go. You're like, can't just let go.
Yeah, but, you know, it's like we also get really stuck in our heads of judgment, fear, like embarrassment, like what am I going to look like? This is going to feel awkward, and, you know, all these feelings that I'm experiencing are uncomfortable, and, you know, we can really stop ourselves. And so I guess there's also just a matter of having awareness around that and not letting it overtake your experience, just acknowledging it. And maybe this whole like letting go thing isn't something that you just do and then it's gone. It's just it's a constant practice of observing and awareness and slowly leaning into those edges. And
and something you said then about like when, you know, you've got all these things going on in your mind, did you say like you're wondering what you look like or all these things? So in that as well, I'm always curious, like, what is it that you need? You know, like if sometimes during sex with my partner, if I'm feeling sort of disconnected or getting into my head, I ask for him to look at me in the eyes. Can you slow down and look at me? Or, you know, if you're wondering like what you look like, maybe you need someone to tell you that you're beautiful. Like, so we're always sort of moving towards what we need or what we can focus on instead. Or
I love that. What do I need to? Yeah. Ooh, that was juicy. I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down right now. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's a really great insight. Of course. So some of the stuff is so obvious and common sense, but just not common.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
stuck.
And it's like as soon as you know, you're like, oh God, of course. It's like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and all of those things as well. Like when we're caught up in the head, what I notice is that the body and the mind are very connected. So if the body is in tension, the mind is going to be wild. when the body lets go, the mind will let go. So sometimes we're trying to like combat the mind as if we're in some kind of battle with it, like trying to stop telling you these words or trying to whatever, like wanting it to kind of be quiet or something, and can get really caught up with anxiety and overthinking. But often what we need is just some way of coming like back into your body. So depending on like what's going on for you, but maybe you notice when your mind is wild, you might notice that your shoulders are like totally tensed up. And if you can focus on that and notice the sensation and just kind of be aware of it, maybe put a hand on them and let them know that you're here, you might notice that your shoulders can soften, and then your mind will soften as well.
Yeah, beautiful. This has been so awesome. We're reaching time, so we're going to have to wrap this up. I've got 3 quick fire questions to wrap up our potty. So the first one is, how do you cultivate more pleasure in your life?
I cultivate it by like just doing it, honestly. Yeah. Like might even after this call just go and like be on my bed and just have some self-pleasure time. And the other things that I cultivate of pleasure, to be honest, I live quite a sensual life. Like that's just quite natural to me to move towards things that are sensual, like wearing clothing. Like now I've got fur on that's like fluffy and soft. And I enjoy things that are sensual in my body. Massaging, hot baths, saunas. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I've got a sensual living workbook coming out soon too. So for anyone who's curious about this mystical sensual lifestyle, then there's heaps of info on there. Yeah. So my next question is, what's one thing you've learnt about self-love recently?
What is one thing I've learned about self-love? I've learned recently that I often put a lot of pressure on myself for things to be different in some way than they are. And actually this morning in meditation, I noticed that I was like putting pressure. So as far as self-love, in that moment, I just let myself know that I didn't need to put the pressure on, that everything was okay. So that felt really loving. Yeah.
Awesome. And the final question is, what has been the most impactful book you've ever read? Tough, I know, real tough. You can only choose one.
I don't know.
I need to change this question. It's like, it's so torturous.
I've ever read. Yeah. I mean, one of the books that I would call my favourite books is a book by Aldous Huxley called Island, and he talks of this utopia. And when I read that, I definitely thought a lot about it. So it's basically an island where people like work, say, like a couple of hours in the field, and then they do like their other work for the day, and everyone kind of gets to choose what best suits their body, and they have these minor birds flying around saying here and now, and they use hypnosis for operations, and that was like my oh yeah. And they have these like family units, so you have like a wider family, not just your own family, so children can go and be with who they need, get support. And yeah, so as I read that was pretty impactful.
Oh my God, I'm getting this book immediately. It sounds like my dream life. Wow.
Yeah. And just how they use mushrooms for medicine, and yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, cool. Okay, well, we'll have that in the show notes as well. And how can people find you if they want to work with you or check you out?
You can find me online with my website, which you'll put in the comments, won't you? Or you can track me down on Facebook. That's probably where I show up more. Or jump on my newsletter. And the way that I work, actually, I have a program that's going to begin in September, which is a really wonderful opportunity to be in a network of other women that are going through transitions and have that celebratory support and awakening process together. And you'll be able to work with me privately and with the group. So that's a great opportunity. And that's going to include 2 days of a retreat down in Wanaka. So for people in New Zealand, that's a wonderful way to do some practice together. So
delicious.
Yeah,
I'll make sure that beautiful. We'll definitely have all the information for that as well in the show notes for anyone who wants to inquire. Amazing. This was so good. Such a juicy conversation. Thank you again. I have so much love and adoration for you and what you're about and your work. So thank you.
You're welcome. This has been great way to talk and, share together. Yeah.
Totally. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe or share it with someone who you feel could benefit from hearing it too. My mission is to bring healthy sexuality to the mainstream, so be sure to leave your 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app, because that way this content can land in the ears of those who need it the most. If you're looking for more resources on how to live a turned-on life, check out my website at www.laura-allen.com, where you'll find events, coursework, free downloadable workbooks, as well as my coaching packages. And lastly, I want to thank you for taking the time to prioritize yourself in this exquisite way, because when we do, that's when we can really start to show up for the rest of the world. And until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back with another episode soon.